Okay, next we're going to be looking at the SIR model with vital dynamics. So vital dynamics is when you consider natural births and deaths within a population. When somebody is born, they are susceptible, but this person can also die from natural causes, which are unrelated to the epidemic. So we're going to be adapting our previous equations with the birth rate, which will be mu, and the death rate, which is v. So we now have three sets of differential equations. ds by dt equals minus beta si plus mu n minus vs. So the first part of the equation is the same. We have the people going from susceptible to infected, but we also have mu n and minus vs. Mu n is the possibility of someone within the population giving birth, and then minus vs represents the probability of one of the people dying. So if you die, that pretty much means you go straight to the recovered category. The second equation is di by dt equals beta si minus gamma I minus vi. The first bit's the same, beta si minus gamma I, which is the rate of change of the infected, so people becoming infected from the susceptible, minus people becoming recovered. And then this is minused by vi, and vi represents the fact that somebody can die while infected, but not due to the epidemic, so for example, maybe a car crash or something. And then we can finally look at the last equation, where we have dr by dt equals gamma I minus vi. And throughout this, we just have to imagine that if you die from natural causes, this means you're technically recovered because you cannot get the disease again. So dr by dt equals gamma I minus vi. Gamma I is the proportion of people becoming infected from the susceptible category, and then vi is the probability, the number of people dying from natural causes who are infected. Okay. Now we'll be looking at the limitations of the SIR model. So the SIR model assumes that anyone who gets the pandemic is the same. It does not consider the immunity for everybody. For example, the coronavirus affects mainly older people, and so the probability of a child getting the epidemic is lower than that of a senior citizen. The SIR model also assumes that the population is continuously mixing in with one another, so the susceptible always meeting infected. There's no sense of fear or anything, and there's no social distancing or quarantine, so you don't have this susceptible separated from the infected. The SIR model assumes that everyone just mixes around. The model also assumes that everybody is susceptible at one point. However, there are people who are immune to start off with, so the number of recovered will not be zero when the epidemic starts, but the SIR model assumes that people are all susceptible, but there are people who are immune. Now we're going to look at the accuracy of the SIR model. We're going to look at the case count for coronavirus in the UK up to April the 27th, as this closely mirrors the first proportion of the SIR model. So the total case count is pretty much the same as the number of infected people. So the rate of change, di by dt, is the number of new people coming in, getting infected, minus the number of people becoming recovered. And we can see that there's exponential growth to start off with. However, it quickly slows down, and then it linearizes, and then there's a peak. But because we're looking at April 27th, there has not been a peak yet. But if we look at now, which is the date, we're near the end of June, so we can see that there has peaked, and the graph has plateaued, and not plateaued, it's gone back down to, the case count's gone much lower. And we can see that this is similar to the SIR model, as the number of infected people peaks and then decreases. And then eventually it goes back to zero. And then, as I said at the beginning, we're going to be looking at other epidemics. I found a graph of the number of Ebola cases in Liberia across 2014 to 2015. And then we could see that the graph is almost perfectly mirroring the I part of the SIR model. There is quick exponential growth at the beginning, which slows down, and there is a peak, and then it decreases, and then it becomes zero at the end. So So we can see that the SIR model is actually done quite a good job of predicting, of representing epidemics. But obviously there will be times when there are large differences. So to conclude, I'll say that the SIR model is not 100% accurate when predicting the growth of an epidemic. This is because there are limitations to the model, and we can keep adding more and more variables to the model, such as vital dynamics, other things. We can SEIR, SIS. Then there's also the SI category, where once you become infected, it's permanent. This would be used to describe HIV, where once you're infected, there is no recovering, so it's permanent infection. But each time we add to the model, it makes it more and more accurate to real life. So, but then we can also keep on adding. So if we add to the SEIR, we can add to the fact that what if an exposed could infect? We assumed earlier on that exposed cannot infect, but what if you have no symptoms and can infect? This would represent a lot of coronavirus in people who have coronavirus, as a lot of them don't show symptoms, so they would come under the exposed category, but they can infect other people. So the SIEIR model doesn't account for this, but we can adapt the model, and now we can add in the rate of change to susceptible would be minus beta SI minus DSE, where DSE is a probability of being infected by an exposed person. And this just gets even more complex once you introduce social distancing, quarantine, or even a vaccine. So overall, I will say that the basic SIR model is a relatively accurate way to predict the spread of an epidemic. It can be used to explain any sudden influxes in growth of the number of infected. It can be used to predict the end of an epidemic roughly, but the SIR model just gives rough explanations. The model cannot be extrapolated and is not perfect when giving you an exact date. So you cannot, from the first month or so of coronavirus, you can't use the SIR model to say exactly what day it's going to end. You can maybe guess like within a month or so, but you're not going to get an exact date, because models cannot become a mathematical model will never be perfect in that way. So an epidemic can be mathematically modelled relatively accurately, but it will never be 100% perfect. So thank you for watching this, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.